feel compelled to begin today's sermon with a series of disclaimers, much like the drug ads on television. You know the ones. After they tell you why you need to be taking the drug, a fast-talking announcer comes on and in a soothing voice, smooth as silk, proceeds to list the side effects of this supposed miracle cure. They move progressively from dry mouth and night sweats to loss of sensation in your arms and legs, and end with explosive diarrhea. By the time they're done, you are more afraid of the drug than the ailment or the illness that troubles you. And I say this morning because I have some disclaimers of my own that may make you want to turn off this sermon before it begins. You may figure that you're better off with your own wisdom on the matter of healing than with mine. And I wouldn't blame you a bit. I have a very humble sense this morning that many of you in this room have more wisdom about the topic of healing than me, given the recent experiences of many of your lives. And I would love to hear from you in the days to come so that I might be better informed about this wondrous mystery. But as your pastor, part of my role is to wrestle as faithfully as I can with the stories given to us by our root narrative, especially those stories that we call gospel or good news. So let me start there with my disclaimers. The worldview of the Bible is vastly different from our own. Now that seems like an obvious statement given that more than 2,000 years separate our culture and their cultures. But I think we often forget this reality. And the development of science and medicine has brought us tons of information and experience about health and illness that was just simply unknown to the people of Jesus' day, and I believe was unknown to Jesus himself. Many modern-day biblical scholars believe that what was then thought to be demon possession, as in today's gospel reading, was more likely something like severe seizures, something that they could only understand as being gripped by an alien force. That's not to suggest that at times we too might not feel completely out of control of our own minds and bodies. But we are more likely to understand that experience as the unwanted thoughts of our own mind or the invasion of an unwanted disease rather than as the invasion of demons. My second disclaimer about this gospel text has to do with the speed with which the healing is delivered. It at least raises questions for me. Why is it that in the healing stories of the Bible, the person is almost always healed immediately, while today, at least in my experience, immediate healings are rare? And Jesus is not the only one doing the immediate healing. His disciples are doing it too. Peter and other apostles in the book of Acts go around healing instantaneously, like it was as simple as falling off a log. For some of us, Jesus and his disciples were simply so open to and so filled with the Spirit of God that they can do that kind of stuff. Others of us may suspect that these stories were not meant to be so much about healing per se as they were about witnessing, witnessing to the power of God and of Jesus as God incarnate, and therefore they may not be wholly accurate in their accounts in the way that we would want journalistic accuracy today. But either way, whatever your understanding, my point is that I think it can be a danger to read these ancient stories of healing and come to the conclusion that instantaneous healing is what God does, and slow, gradual healing, 2 steps forward, 1 step back, sometimes 2 steps back, is what doctors and psychiatrists and physical therapists and acupuncturists and Reiki practitioners do. God does the immediate stuff. They do the gradual slogging stuff. But I believe, and because I believe, that God is active in every form of healing, no matter who the healing is, and no matter how long it takes, I think all that healing, through all those hands, comes from God. Healing is Spirit-given, no matter how long it takes. And we're all invited to rejoice whenever and however it comes. And now to my own more personal disclaimers. I told you there would be a list of them. Given my own experience as a person and as a pastor, I don't believe that there is a one-to-one correlation with prayer and healing, at least not in any readily recognizable way. It may shock you to hear me say that. I know that there are faithful Christians who disagree with me, but I've seen too many faithful prayers for healing not result in the healing that was desired. And I have witnessed healing in those who were not particularly sending prayers heavenward. But my second personal disclaimer is that when I am in need of healing, or someone I love is in need of healing, or someone or some group of people whose plight has touched my heart that I don't even know is in need of healing, I feel compelled to pray for them. And I do. Now that may seem contradictory to you, and indeed it may be contradictory. But for me, that is the paradox of healing. Though I do not believe that I can control a healing outcome through prayer, I do believe that prayer is a way for me to extend my love in ways that connect me with others in unexplained ways, even across time and distance. I also believe that prayer is a way for me to connect my desire for healing with the healing energy of God that is always and ever alive in the world. But because that divine healing energy has its origins in God, though I can participate in it, I can never control it, no matter how hard I pray. And for that, I am ultimately grateful. Which leads me to my final disclaimer. I believe that openness to the possibility of healing does indeed release the divine energy of healing in powerful ways. But the healing may take a form that I had not anticipated or even recognized as healing. Healing can be physical, but it may not be physical. It may be healing from mental anguish or worry, or relational healing from an abusive or painful or disappointing human connection with someone else, or a relationship with yourself that needs healing. Rightly or wrongly, I do believe that openness to healing brings healing. But we do not ultimately control the form or the timing. Thank God we are made in the image of one who's not limited by the timelines of any single life or the awareness of any one person. So to sum it up, for me, healing is a divine mystery. A divine mystery that we are all privileged to participate in. Healing potential is something that we share as a community of faith and love and justice. It is something that we can invite both by our prayers and participate in both by our prayers and by working toward right relationships with ourselves and with others. By building just communities that honor the dignity, the uniqueness, and the fullness of every single person. We may even invite healing through the amazing sacrifice and joy of organ donation, or through sharing the skill of our medical expertise, or through the simple embrace of a hand in love by a bedside. But paradoxically, though we may invite it, healing is ultimately experienced as a divine gift, which takes us again and again by grateful surprise and leaves us without words to fully express the experience. And in closing, that brings me to the one word in today's gospel story that leapt up off the page at me. And that one word is silence. It probably leapt out at me because it is the first word that Jesus spoke to the troubled person that was before him and to the demons that were afflicting that person. Silence, Jesus said. It probably also leapt out at me because silence was such a big part of the 3-day retreat that I participated in last week. We were invited to spend some time reflecting alone in silence. And even when we were together as a group, there were 24 of us, the invitation was to always observe a moment of silence after one person spoke and before the next person spoke. It was a way of honoring what each person said, and a way of encouraging us to really listen to them, rather than to spend the time that they were speaking busy thinking about what we might want to say in response to what they had said. And let me tell you, the silence was very, very healing, inwardly and relationally healing. It brought me to the conclusion that perhaps, just perhaps, silence is the beginning point of healing. When something is troubling us, demonic or otherwise, it's natural to let our anxiety bounce around in our minds like a doubles ping pong match on steroids. Buddhists call it monkey mind, because our panic minds race in every direction like a monkey bouncing from one tree limb to another without ever stopping. And when we find ourselves trapped in that state, call it monkey mind or wrestling with inner demons or the panicked and defeatist voices of fear in our heads, we suffer more, not less. But when we can find stillness, we can remember that we are not alone. We can remember that God is with us and within us. We can remember that others care, and we can fall into the embrace of that loving awareness and find the deep inner courage to surrender to it. And that in itself, I believe, will bring healing. Divine healing. It may or may not bring us the healing that we desire. but it may just bring us a deeper healing that we had never imagined possible. A healing that dwelled in the imagination of God before it ever dwelled in our own minds and our own hearts. So, my friends, with love and gratitude, with all my mind and all my heart, I pray for your healing. I pray for mine.